Okay, great. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining this pre-proposal optional conference for the Midcoastside Transportation Demand Management Plan. My name is Chanda Singh. I'm a senior transportation planner with the San Mateo County Planning and Building Department. I'm going to hand it to my colleague, Veronica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica Vostenak. I am the Public Works Program Manager for the City of Half Moon Bay. And in case he pops on later, we also have Sam Trainer, who's our Civic Spark Fellow, who's working on sustainable transportation. We'll be working on this project as well. So nice to meet everybody.
Also wanted to give my colleague Lisa a chance to introduce herself if she's able to.
Yeah, hi Shonda. Nice to meet you all. I'm Lisa Awazasa. I'm the Deputy Director for San Mateo County Planning and Building Department.
So we just have well, maybe it's not super short, but we have a presentation to help orient everybody to the request for proposals. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, you are seeing the slides?
We're seeing presenter view.
You're seeing, okay.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the slides?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. So yes, thanks again for taking the time. So, wanted to just provide a primer on this project. So just before we get underway, just a housekeeping. I think that everybody at this point during our journey into the pandemic knows how to use Zoom, but this conference is being recorded so that it can be posted online on public purchase afterwards, and so we can keep track of questions and discussion. We'll go through the presentation first and then answer questions that we were able to afterwards, and anything we don't get to, we will put online in writing through public purchase. Please feel free to use the chat to add your questions directly in there as we're going through. And we will also accept questions submitted through public purchase through tomorrow, October 28th at 1 p.m. And if you haven't already signed up to receive notifications and have access to all the RFP materials, please do so via public purchase. Okay, so with that, would appreciate if those who are willing would introduce yourself in the chat. Feel free to put in your name and organization. So this is just a quick snapshot of what we're going to go over today. We're going to go over the context, purpose, and objectives of this project, our key partners and stakeholders that we are hoping to participate, a quick overview of the scope of work, some clarifications on proposal submissions, the evaluation criteria that will be used to evaluate written proposals and for the oral interview, next steps in the RFP schedule, and then, like I said, kind of open it up for questions and answers. So first, our context. So this project was co-developed and is being co-led by San Mateo County and the City of Half Moon Bay. It is funded in part by a grant from the San Mateo County Transportation Authority through their Alternative Congestion Relief and Transportation Demand Management Cycle 1 call for projects. So we're really thrilled to get funding to support this planning effort. For the purposes of administration and the consultant contract, San Mateo County Planning and Building Department is the lead. So we are sort of considered the implementing agency that will oversee and have a contract with the chosen consultant. So for context, this is really about developing a transportation demand management plan for Half Moon Bay and the unincorporated areas of the San Mateo County Midcoast, which includes the communities of Montera, Moss Beach, little spelling mistake there, sorry about that, Princeton, Philip River, El Granado, and Miramar. And the plan itself was identified to be developed in Connect the Coastside, which is our San Mateo County Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan, which was adopted just this past July by our County Board of Supervisors. Working on TDM was also identified in the Half Moon Bay Local Coastal Program Land Use Plan as well. So this is a priority for both jurisdictions to move forward. Some of the challenges that we face, which are sort of detailed in many previous planning documents, are that our residents are spread out along the Midcoast with limited connectivity from community to community. So we have some pretty unique mobility challenges. One being that Highway 1 and Highway 92, so Highway 1 goes north-south and connects all of our coastal communities. Highway 92 being sort of the primary connection from the coast side to the bay side, are the arteries for all modes of travel. So this is really how our buses, our vehicles, our freight, our pedestrians, cyclists, everybody needs to use these highways to get around. There's also very inconsistent pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So both Half Moon Bay and the county are actively pursuing infrastructure projects to support connected multimodal facilities. But right now the network is still pretty incomplete. So most people do drive to meet even like local transportation needs. We're also experience very heavy tourism travel. The coast side is beautiful and hosts to many beaches, parks, and large visitor serving events like the Pumpkin Festival. I'm sure Veronica can talk a little bit more about. So there is quite a bit of vehicular gridlock during the weekends, and not many options for people to get to the coast side in any other way besides driving. We do have transit service via Samtrans. It's fairly infrequent and limited. So there's one bus line that goes along Highway 1. There's a couple other buses that serve some school routes. There's another bus that goes on Highway 82, but the frequencies can be, you might be waiting an hour or longer to get on the bus, and with very long, travel distances, and pretty much no getting around needing to make a connection to another place. So it probably comes as no surprise that we have a very high, we have a higher vehicle miles traveled per resident than the county average. And 86% of commute trips are made by driving alone, whereas the county average is about 66%. So commute.org, who is our regional transportation management agency, recently did a survey. They have those results published online. That really paints a great picture of some of the challenges that coastsiders face getting around, which is one of the reasons why we are excited about this plan. Veronica, before I move on, is there anything that you want to mention just in terms of context?
Not particularly. I think you covered it pretty well. I think the only thing that I would say is that, while we are in San Mateo County and somewhat close to other sorts of transit service and more traditional methods of TDM, I think that the coast side, if any of you are familiar, is we have this perceived distance challenge where a lot of times shuttles or services don't service the coast when they do service some of the other areas. So I just want to emphasize that there will need to be a lot of really creative and innovative suggestions and in this plan. So we're a very unique case here, and just keep that in mind that we're looking for some really unique strategies to move forward.
And and one more thing I'll mention about context that maybe I didn't touch on is the county considers our mid-coast communities urban, like they're urban, and we have other communities further out on the coast side that we consider to be more rural. But I would say that the character of this area is maybe considered by residents to be largely rural or suburban in nature. And so just even around the types of solutions that would be suggested, I think there's a lot of strong feelings about kind of what the coast side is, how it looks, what's the service, etc. So just to give additional, kind of more context through some visuals, and I may be repeating myself. So can you guys see my mouse or no? Maybe not. Okay, so yeah, so here is San Mateo County, and perhaps some of you are more familiar with the communities that are sort of on the bay side. So here's Half Moon Bay, and this is sort of a visual of our mid-coast communities. So we are contiguous in nature, separate jurisdictions, but contiguous in nature. And here's Highway 1 along the sort of spine of our communities, and then Highway 92. So all of the unincorporated mid-coast residents, largely if they're going to the Bayside, are going to have to also travel through Half Moon Bay to leave the community. And this is one of the reasons we really wanted to do a shared plan, is because we think solutions really need to serve both areas. Here just are some visuals of, some of the public drawing and local attractions. We've got the Coastal Trail, Montero Lighthouse, lots of really wonderful parks, beaches, bluffs. So it's a really wonderful place to visit if you haven't been there yet. Highly encourage you to go. And then some of our, we're also grappling with other concerns around the highway itself, Highway 1 in particular, with things like sea level rise, bluff retreat, coastal erosion. So, we recognize that sustainability is a really key thing to consider, just generally reducing our vehicle miles traveled, but also thinking about how people get around. We really want to make sure that there's options. Here's just a little snapshot of the existing bicycle network in Half Moon Bay. This is from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. And Half Moon Bay's got, 15 miles of class 1 path, but right now it's largely just on the west side of the highway, and crossing Highway 1 is a big challenge, an infrastructure challenge that we are dealing with. And so we're really also looking to expand infrastructure on the east side. So I think perhaps if it's not coming across already, I'm just emphasizing that I think we are really trying to, as jurisdictions, expand the infrastructure in order to meet local needs. And I think we're really looking for policy and programmatic solutions to really optimize what we have now and in the future. Here is just some of the bus stops. Most of our bus stops do not have amenities, and a lot of folks, again, have trouble accessing them. And so it's not, right now at least, not a particularly attractive option for those who have choices in how they get around. And here is just an image of, this is off of Capistrano Road, I think in Princeton. It's Barbara's Fish Trap. And just there's a crowd. So we've this is Highway 92, sort of leaving Half Moon Bay, kind of at the intersection of Main Street and 92. And so just kind of showing a little bit of the fact that we've got this one way out, one way in backup that happens, especially with these large serving events. So really the purpose of the plan, or what we're trying to get to, is encourage the use of sustainable transportation options and enhance mobility through the creation of a Midcoastside transportation demand management plan that's tailored to the unique setting of the unincorporated Midcoast and the city of Half Moon Bay. And our goals with the project are to result in actionable TDM strategies that are tailored to the needs of the coast side and promote cohesiveness between existing and planned transportation improvements and regional and local growth patterns. We want to increase transportation equity with a specific focus on our vulnerable residents, workers, and visitors. We have a large, agricultural community that lives in our area and agriculture in the area. We also have a lot of older residents, a large monolingual Spanish-speaking population. So we really want to focus on some of the needs, specific transportation needs of those that wouldn't otherwise be able to. I guess also I'll just mention that a lot of our students, there's no community college on the coast. So any really college student is having to travel. We really want to educate stakeholders on the value and importance of TDM to improving transportation conditions and meeting mobility needs. A lot of our stakeholders have been very much focused on the infrastructure and the gaps therein, which we are, as I've mentioned, actively working towards addressing. And I think TDM is less understood and its value is perhaps less fully realized. So our objectives during this planning process are to meaningfully engage the public and key stakeholders with a focus on equity to understand existing conditions, barriers to TDM, and the potential solutions. We want to promote consistency in the meaningful application of our regional transportation demand management policy, which is set by the City County Association of Governments as part of their congestion management program. We want to identify feasible policy and programmatic solutions tailored to our unique setting and circumstances. We would like the plan to clarify roles, responsibilities, opportunities, and implementation steps needed to implement those solutions. And we would like the consultant team to really support consideration of the plan by our decision makers. I'll keep. Just Veronica, anything else you want to add before I move on?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. So moving on to some of the key partners and stakeholders. So a key partner really will be our consultant team. The consultant team should include a transportation planning firm with expertise and demonstrated success in developing transportation demand management plans. Consultants with experience developing plans for similar sized regions or with a tourist-based economy, cultural diversity, geographical challenges, similar to the Midcoast are really preferred. And, the consultant or any associated sub-consultants should also have demonstrated success with developing and implementing diverse community engagement strategies and experience working with agricultural or Latinx communities is preferred. So stakeholders will be a really important, will play a really important role in providing technical expertise, regulatory context, community engagement expertise, and decision-making. So pages 4 and 5 of the RFP list some of the key project stakeholders that came to mind for us from the County of San Mateo, Half Moon Bay, external agencies, advisory, and decision-making bodies in the community. So we just wanted to highlight a few of them here to provide additional context. So from San Mateo County, the Planning and Building Department has permitting authority in this area through our local coastal program, and we are key implementers of the CCAG regional TDM policy. The Parks and Harbor District are both landowners, employers, and their facilities generate trips to the coast side. So we think they're also very key stakeholders. Similarly, for the City of Half Moon Bay, the Public Works Department, City Manager's Office, and Community Development Department all play a role in land use and resource allocation. So they'll all be key to engage in coming up with solutions that we all may be responsible for. External agencies include the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. SamTrans is our transit provider. They also run other types of transit programs. The California Coastal Commission, who can provide context about where policies may need to be amended in both of our jurisdictions' respective local coastal programs if there are conflicts. And Commute.org, who is the Transportation Management Association for our county. So aside from decision makers, such as our Planning Commission, City Council, and Board of Supervisors, it'll be really important to engage the Midcoast Community Council, which is an elected body representing community interests in the unincorporated area of the Midcoast, in addition to both the county and Half Moon Bay's bicycle and pedestrian advisory committees. We also have several community organizations that we feel will be key to engage during the planning process, and that can share the needs of specific residents and help shape specific programs for them. Including our senior population, residents of several affordable housing communities, and our Latinx residents. Veronica, anything you want to add?
The only thing I would add is that we have an extremely engaged community. I think, engagement is important in, whatever sort of a plan you're doing. But I just would like to emphasize that here on the coast side, people are really passionate about the coast side and how to get around, and traffic is something that's really on top of people's minds, and thinking about how to get out in an emergency or what to do on the weekends. The consensus for a lot of the city and the coast side is, you either leave your house early in the morning and come back late at night, or you don't leave on the weekends. So this is going to be a really engaged community, and making sure that we're out there discussing this plan with them will be extremely important. So I just want to emphasize that we have a fair amount of budget allocated for outreach, and it's something that is really important to the success of this plan.
Great, thank you. So now I'll just go over the scope of work and timeline. Excuse me. So the project is anticipated to take place over about a 22-month period or less. It's intended to be complete no later than December of 2024. And we anticipate kicking off the project sort of I wrote down March 2022, but sort of like February 2023 is when we hope all of our contracts are signed, so we can really kick off in March 2022. And we expect that proposers include a detailed schedule with key tasks, subtasks, and key meeting dates as part of their proposals. And so while proposing teams may suggest additional or optional activities in the detailed scope of work outlined in the RFP, we anticipate that most modifications, should be minor. So I'll just go over now some of the key tasks that we've outlined. Task 1 is project administration and management, including project initiation, ongoing project management, and reporting. The consultant team will be responsible for developing a kickoff meeting agenda, project management plan, and strategic TDM plan and goals. And so ongoing meetings between the consultant team, City of Half Moon Bay, and the county will really be used to review progress, course correct as needed, and be a place for decision making. We anticipate that the consultant team will prepare regular invoices with accompanying reports that will help support the county in reporting on progress to our primary funder, the Transportation Authority. Task 2 is organizational stakeholder engagement. And we sort of categorized organizational stakeholders into three categories. Recipients who need to know about the plan but will not play a role in implementation, sort of agencies like Caltrans. Interest-based groups who represent stakeholders or geographic interests but may not be focused on transportation. These could include tourism interests like California State Parks, economic interests like the Coastside Recovery Initiative, and community interests like the Midcoast Community Council. Implementation partners are organizations that we would need to work with in order to execute the plan. So organizations like Samtrans and commute.org, certainly. Task 3 is focused on public engagement. And I think, as Veronica already emphasized, Midcoast and Half Moon Bay residents participate very regularly in processes that we have and are vocal about their needs. And so some of the recent examples of planning efforts that demonstrate this are Connect the Coastside, and again, Half Moon Bay's local coastal land use plan update. So one of the first tasks for the consultant will be to develop a robust public engagement plan, which should consider recent planning experiences and successful methods of outreach from past, basically lessons learned from our past plans. Stakeholders really expect transparency and resources towards implementation of the public engagement plan. So task 3 also includes implementation of the public engagement plan and summarizing those findings. Task 4 is focused on assessing existing conditions. This planning effort is not starting from scratch. So we do have TDM programs today. They have been identified in various policy documents, which have been adopted by both jurisdictions or have been recommended by regional agencies. Our partners like commute.org are actively implementing TDM programs in the area. So we really expect the consultant team to build upon these past efforts and understand deeply where there's room for improvements gaps, or conflicts. Task 4's existing travel conditions report will just help provide a geospatial reference to where there may be the additional need and opportunities for strategies. So again, maybe it'll be about identifying a gap where one of our existing programs is not reaching an important population. Task 5 is all about producing the plans, really the meat of the project, I would say. So in particular, we want to take lessons learned, especially around implementation from other similar communities that have a high influx of visitors, seasonal events, and an agricultural community. And this will really help support our justification for recommendations in the future and need for anticipated resources. We anticipate that strategies are likely to generally fall into the categories of policies, programs, services, agency coordination, and evaluation. Again, we're both focused on actionable and implementation-oriented solutions that provide direction on next steps. Task 6 is focused on the approval process. And so the plan will be considered separately by each jurisdiction. So the plan itself should lend itself to that approval and adoption process accordingly. Sorry, Veronica, anything you'd like to add?
Okay. No, I'm good.
All right. Okay, so moving on to just maybe more of the logistics on the proposal submissions. And this is again all outlined in the RFP, so we encourage you to review it carefully. So just some highlights, the format, we would like you to number pages of the proposal. Please use 1-inch margins, excluding headers and footers, and submit in Adobe PDF format. This is an electronic submission only, so we do not expect to receive paper copies. Generally, the contents should have the cover letter, the authorized contracts, contacts for future negotiation and contracting, a table of contents, any exceptions, minimum qualifications, the technical proposal, supplementary documents, and then the fee proposal. And this is outlined in Section 5, instructions for proposers. The minimum qualifications are detailed in Section 3.1 and should be further described in the actual proposal. Please include and use the form provided in Appendix A. There is an editable version of that form available through public purchase. The technical proposal is generally the project approach to the scope of work that we just went over and should include the detailed project schedule with milestones. For supplementary documents, please review Section 5.2C and Section 3.2, organizational capacity. So this is really all about the firms and the firm and your team. And please do include, 3 references. For the fee proposal, it is not to exceed $220,000. There is an Excel template provided for the consultants to complete the fee proposal. Please do not modify it except for as noted in the actual template to add columns, etc., for more staff or more consultants. And please submit this as a separate electronic file, as it will be reviewed separately from the actual the rest of your proposal, the written proposal. So again, this is an electronic submission only. Include your name, the proposer name, and the RFP title and number in each of the file names so we can keep them all together. Please submit everything via public purchase. Please do not email staff directly with your proposals. And just always, please allow for sufficient time to upload. We are not the keepers of public purchase. We do not know or can control how long that takes. So please ensure adequate time for proposal submission. Again, the fee proposal should be submitted separately, and no handwritten responses will be accepted. So now we'll move on to the evaluation criteria. So, the proposal will be evaluated by a subject matter expert panel, and based on sort of different components. The first is a screening around minimum qualifications. So any proposal that does not demonstrate meeting the minimum qualifications will not be eligible for contract and will not move forward. Otherwise, the proposal evaluation for the first part will be out of 100 points, with method and approach worth 40 points, experience and organizational capacity worth 35 points, and the fee proposal worth 25. We anticipate that we will bring up to three proposers in for an oral interview after the first screening, and that will be worth 60 points. The oral interview itself will be worth 45, and the fee proposal will be evaluated again worth 15. So the fee proposal overall is worth 25% of the overall score. So just to highlight what each of those criteria are for the proposal submission, in the method and approach, we really want to see that the proposer has a clear understanding of the scope of services. We'll be looking at the appropriateness of the project approach and your understanding of the technical and stakeholder engagement needs. The reasonableness of a staffing level and allocation, your methods for quality control and keeping the project on schedule and within budget, and your approach to working with diverse communities. For experience and organizational capacity, we'll be looking at the expertise and capacity of your firm, your prior experience working in coastal or similarly situated communities, the qualifications of the key personnel assigned to the project, the experience and quality of completed projects for other agencies for similar scopes of work, and again, experience working in tourism-based areas. Just to hopefully clarify the fee proposal, as I mentioned, it's worth 25% of the overall score, including the oral interview, and 25% of the first initial written proposal score, and this is sort of by county policy. The way that it'll be evaluated is we'll be looking at the lowest price proposal will receive the full 25 points. All other proposals will receive partial points by dividing the lowest total fee proposed by the amount of the other fees proposed and multiplying that resulting number by 25 points. So just for example here, we've got 0.82 times 25. And so firm C would be getting 20.5 points total for their proposal. So we're just to wrap up our next steps. So we released the RFP on October 17th. We're having our pre-proposal conference, optional pre-proposal conference now. And we encourage you to submit any additional questions through public purchase by tomorrow at 1 p.m. The proposal is due November 16th at 3 p.m. Please allow sufficient time for upload. And we will be conducting virtual interviews with the top up to 3 proposers on December 5th. We have tentatively scheduled 1 to 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And after that, we will begin the process of reaching out to the winning proposal and addressing any information about appeals and other things are also listed in the RFP. We anticipate taking this to the Board of Supervisors for their review and approval in mid-January and awarding the contract in February and ending in December of 2024. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and we can turn to questions and answers. Oh, it's like I don't know how to use Zoom. I don't know how to use Zoom. Okay. I haven't been checking the chat. That'll be the first place. Okay. Are there any questions that are coming up? And we can stay on for as long as you need us. So if you're ruminating, please continue to do so. Okay. So Ula asks, do you have a sense of how much of the public engagement you anticipate being virtual versus in person? That's a great question. So we don't know what will be happening in terms of the pandemic and some of our advisory bodies, like our decision-making bodies, certainly right now with the hybrid meeting approach. So like at this point, hybrid meetings have continued, and we anticipate that they will continue to be an option because they have allowed for more expansive public input. So things like our Midcoast Community Council has continued to be hybrid. Our county BPAT, our County Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has been virtual. Almost all of our meetings with agencies have continued to be virtual. So we anticipate all of that, some of the organizational stakeholder engagement to be virtual. I think that for the other types of public engagement, depending on what the proposer states, some of it we anticipate needing to be in person. So we have envisioned some amount of perhaps pop-up or in-person, especially at some of our housing communities like Pillar Ridge Manufactured Housing Community. I know there's one in Moonridge.
Kenyatta Cove.
So we think that there's some opportunities to really get good feedback in person. So I think we leave it up to the proposers to sort of outline what you have, what would be a good approach. But I think it's sort of safe to assume that for certain established organizations and agencies, we would be able to do virtual sort of focus groups engagement, but that for reaching residents, we anticipate needing to go to some things in person. I hope that answers your question. Sort of.
Thank you. That does answer the question.
Pandemic is an ever-changing landscape, isn't it? Okay. Anything else? We'll wait. We're patient. And feel free to turn on your camera if you like. Okay.
Chanda, a question just came in the chat. Did you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, the cost proposal is available on the procurement site, the public purchase site. It's uploaded as an attachment. I'll go ahead and put into the chat as well. We did post this on our planning and building, not through public purchase, but just so you can see everything, all the RFP materials. So this includes the minimum qualifications checklist, the fee proposal template, project area map, and our draft standard terms and conditions, including the RFP. But yes, all up to date, everything would be via public purchase. Veronica and Sam actually live on the coast side, so they can answer really specific questions too. I'm more like a lurker over there, so. Lily, do you have a question? Nothing. You're the only one turning your camera on.
Hi.
Hi.
Sure, I'll ask a question. You mentioned a couple specific housing projects that would require pop-ups. I wonder if, well, you mentioned 2 of them. I wonder if there's a more complete list or, you know, having been on the client side in the past, I know you sometimes have a very specific idea of what needs to happen and, you know, tell us.
Well, yeah, and I don't think necessarily, because I think so we still do look to the consultant team to, look at the parameters of the scope and see what's possible. So, pop-ups are one thing. I think I'll just state that the county and Half Moon Bay will also be providing staff support for engagement. So we see that as one of the roles that we will be playing with materials that are provided by the consultant. That's sort of not explicitly stated in the RFP, but that's one of the roles Veronica and Sam and I will be playing along with our colleagues. I think for the unincorporated Midcoast, Pillar Ridge Manufactured Housing Community is one where we see an important group of residents that are largely, are largely lower income, some which rely on transit and sort of a way to get a lot of feedback in one place. So that could be a really good opportunity to engage that group. So that's sort of the primary place, I think, on the Midcoast that we were thinking about an opportunity to engage those residents directly. Veronica, do you have any you want to mention?
Sure. So I had mentioned Kenyatta Cove, which is also a manufactured housing community. That one is also a senior community. So I think Pillar Ridge, there's no age restrictions, but Kenyatta Cove, I think that the residents must be 55 plus. So we kind of have a double whammy there. And I know some of the people who live in that area don't drive, and there's none of that pedestrian or biking infrastructure there. It's mostly just on the coastal trail, and it's really separated. On the other side of Highway 1 in that same area, we have Moonridge Housing, which is an agricultural housing that's not actually in the city limits. It's in the unincorporated, but it's, if you would guess it would be in the city limits. In that area, similar challenges. That is extremely low income. I think the median household income is something like $38,000 per household. So really, really low income. And similarly, so a lot of these individuals who live there are going to school or work and don't have access to a car. I know I've talked to Cabrillo Unified School District, and there's a couple high school students that live in that area, walk along the highway since there's no sidewalk for about 2 miles until they get to a sidewalk, and then they get to the high school. So while that's not in the city limits, it's very much in our sphere of influence, and something that we think about. How do we connect them to the community and the resources here in Half Moon Bay? So I think Moonridge, Kenyatta Cove, you can kind of even hit those two on the same. They're literally across Highway 1 from each other. You could hit them on the same day. The only other area I can think of off the top of my head right now, we have a senior housing community. There's like 5 or 6 housing developments in a small area, and there's a Senior Coastsiders is one of the nonprofits that serves that area, and again, you can hit a lot of that senior population, not just that lives in that community, but greater on the coast. So I think that would be a good housing community to consider doing a pop-up event, because you'll not only get the residents, but you'll also get a lot of older adults attending some of the events. So that's what I envision as far as housing communities.
Thank you. This is super helpful. Quick question on the commercial side, it doesn't look like there is a lot of, like there are many large employers in that region. Is that correct? It's probably mostly small, tourism based. And
Rhonda, I can answer this one if you want. So yeah, we have it, as far as Half Moon Bay is concerned, our two biggest employers are the Ritz-Carlton and Rocket Farms. I think Rocket Farms may be the top. They have probably 150, 200 employees. Ritz-Carlton probably has 100 to 150. So those are small in the sense of large employers. I know anything else beyond that is more like the small hotels, restaurants. It is very much tourism based. And then on unincorporated coastside, I know again, we have the harbor area. We have there's a lot of commercial fishing there. There's not one employer per se, but there's a lot of employment in that area, and there's tourism there as well. I don't know, Chanda, if you know if there's any other large employers in the unincorporated coastside, but I don't think so. I would say I think our third largest employer is Safeway. So just giving you an idea of it is much on the smaller employer side.
Yeah, I don't think we have much. I was just going to see if Lisa had anything she wanted to add to that. If she's there. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so asking large employers to have their own TDM plans is not something that's really a viable option. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for confirming that.
That's not to say, though, that because we have a lot of people who live on the coast, work for larger employers over the hill. So so we have lots of people going to like Genentech, maybe Menlo Park and that area. So while the large employers are not here and maybe we can't require, there are large employers that probably large amounts of residents are going to similar areas. So that's something that we would want to look at is how can we get those people that are going to the same place? How can we streamline their trips so they're not taking so many single rider trips?
And I'll just add that, it's on page 3 in the RFP, and I'll put it on the chat as well. So commute.org did a survey of focused on the coast side, and some of the slides in there really show sort of the disparate, sort of like the types of employers that a lot of our coastside residents are traveling to. And so you can kind of get a sense of some of those trips.
Do they have a shuttle? The major employers like Genentech and whatnot?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that comes to the coast side.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of either that comes directly to the coast side. So I think some of the strategies that commute.org maybe has laid out in this survey as potentials are really thinking about more of the opportunities around carpooling and rather than having sort of a shuttle by a large employer.
Are you interested in exploring partnerships with the major employers, maybe on like van pool incentive programs, or is that on your mind?
We have done very little exploration. I think this TDM plan is really the place that we are hoping to get some of that feedback from the proposing team, like what really are our missed opportunity areas. So it's not something as of right now the county or Half Moon Bay have been very proactive about, beyond sort of our continued being part of this Joint Powers Authority with commute.org, which does provide some of those services. So I think it's about figuring out what gaps should we be filling as a jurisdiction, or maybe where our partners could kind of expand their work with our support to meet some of those needs. So it's like a yes, no, sure, we're interested if it'll work. So we are happy to stay on until the scheduled 4:30, but certainly if you feel like dropping off, please feel free. And you can always send us questions via public purchase. I mean, we're anticipating, being able to respond to those by early next week, and posting those by next week. But we will continue to stay on, but just wanted to feel like people felt like they could leave if they wanted to.
Thank you very much. This has been super helpful.
Thanks for joining, and we really do hope to see proposals from all of you. So please, please do consider proposing on the project. But yeah, we'll stay on. Hi, Megan.
I agree. This has been helpful. That's it. I don't have questions beyond what's been asked. The questions have been helpful and the presentation was great. So thanks for hosting.
Okay, great.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Megan. See you soon. All right. Well, maybe we'll go ahead and just say we'll end at 4. And if there's any other questions that come up in the next 5 minutes, we'll take them. But otherwise, hope to see proposals from you in a couple of weeks. Okay, well, maybe I'll call it now. I'll stop recording since it's just staff now.